Now let us kickstart this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately we could not be joined by Mr. Zulfikar Bukhari, who is the Special Assistant to Prime Minister, but he might be joining us later. Also, the Chief Minister of Gilgit-Baltistan, Mr. Khalid Khurshid, also unfortunately could not make it due to some official work commitments and expressed his regrets. So I will start this conference with our first panel discussion. The objective of this panel discussion would be to touch upon the global tourism, the impact of COVID-19, the comparison of pre- and post-COVID situation with numbers, and the future roadmap. Respected guests, I would now invite my first panel guest, who will be joining us online. Our first panelist is Ms. Andrea Grisdale. She is a World Travel and Tourism member, Executive Board Member Entrepreneurship Organization, Italy, and the owner of and CEO of IC Bellagio. IC Bellagio is a travel company creating the most amazing Italian experiences since its founding. And IC Bellagio has gone only from strength to strength, winning many awards. Please welcome Ms. Andrea Grisdale. Hello, Andrea. I'm very happy that you could join us. So my first question to you would be that we know that the world is still facing this unseen enemy of COVID-19 pandemic, and tourism is one of the most vulnerable industries during this crisis. So can you please share the pre-COVID contribution to the global GDP and impact of the COVID-19 on the tourism sector?
In 2019, 130 million jobs globally for travel and tourism. In 2020, the number of jobs that were lost globally were 142 million. They have already been impacted. We are hoping that there will be some recovery of some of those jobs. And the best case scenario that we are hoping for is that 84 million jobs can be recreated this year in travel and tourism. Again, going back to 2019, if we look at the global GDP, 2.5% of the global economy growth was thanks to travel and tourism. It was hugely important. And 10.3% of the global economic growth was due to travel and tourism.
When is it expected that the tourism sector will be back to the point where it was pre-COVID in the year 2019? And do you think that the COVID effect on tourism will carry into this year, 2021?
So the WTTC, which is the global body, believes that there is a strong summer of travel ahead of us. For sure, we are hoping for a goal of recovering 111 million jobs. At least 84 million of those jobs are definitely predicted. However, obviously, this is something which has to be seen. New research is actually telling us that the best case scenario is that the travel and tourism's contribution to global GDP will fall 17% compared to 2019 figures. However, this is achievable with testing on departure, mandatory mask wearing, and the worldwide implementation of vaccination programs. WTTC have been working very, very closely with the G20. They were invited to participate in the meeting last year in Saudi Arabia, and they worked together. There were 20 people from the private sector working alongside the G20, and they came up with 12 commitments from the private sector. However, support definitely needed from government. They were working on both a recovery plan for 100 million jobs, and what they actually looked at was the opportunity to reopen borders and remove all travel barriers, international agreed testing framework, and also tracing programs based on risk assessment, replace countrywide 14-day quarantine measures. We need to remove quarantine measures and eliminate travel advisory and bans on non-essential international travel. Also, what is needed is to enhance an existing seamless traveller journey experience by adding health components and the use of technology. We were also looking at the adoption and reinforcement of global health, hygiene and safety protocols and common standards. 220 destinations now have qualified for the WTC Safe Travel Stamp. This is following certain protocols. It can also be a huge opportunity for Visit Pakistan. Continued government support is fundamental for our sector in terms of fiscal liquidity incentives, protecting workers, of course, and also investment promotion.
Andrea, you mentioned a lot of solutions that the government can implement, the different strategies that they can take that would promote tourism, like removing borders and removing barriers. How can we kickstart tourism, and what can the private sector do in this regard?
I believe, again, I'm having challenges with audio. I believe you are talking about the removing travel barriers. What we are looking for is obviously to remove quarantine, absolutely, and really replace this with testing on departure. So right now we're having great success with the air travel corridors, which have been introduced. For sure, this has been fantastic. And a lot of protocols have been working on to rebuild traveller confidence. But we obviously need some kind of, synergy between all countries so that we do have some standard protocols to follow.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. And in order to ensure the long-term sustainability of tourism and the positive contribution, how can the world head towards more responsible and sustainable tourism? Responsible and sustainable tourism being the keywords right now.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. First of all, I think climate-friendly travel is absolutely fundamental. We do need carbon neutrality by 2050, science-based targets, of course, environmental action regarding the plastics and food waste, and sustainable tourism is fundamental, and destination and community engagement. It's been very, very important to involve the entire community. Illegal wildlife trade, of course, human trafficking, and social impact, inclusion and diversity, and the future of work. I do want to add that it's so fundamental to try to include as many people as possible, and also when we are talking about tourism, not just concentrate on perhaps the hotels, the restaurants, the guides, people who we consider to be affected directly by tourism. We also have to look at the induced effect. What is the effect on tourism on the entire village, on the entire community, and the entire country, and what can tourism actually bring?
Andrea, can you highlight for me some of the global policies that the world leaders have adopted that have been especially helpful in promoting sustainable tourism?
I think, what I just mentioned, this is really what has been concentrated on: the climate-friendly travel, environmental action, sustainable tourism, and social impact. They are the four main sections of what was discussed by the leaders and agreed on at the G20 in Saudi Arabia in November 2020.
All right. And what are the biggest challenges that this tourism industry is facing at this moment?
I believe the biggest challenges that is being faced at the moment is our borders being closed, and we just have huge barriers to travel right now. And of course, we need to have internationally agreed frameworks and protocols that we can work with. We absolutely have to be able to provide the traveller with a seamless travel journey. And we need to have an adoption and reinforcement of global health, hygiene and safety protocols, and of course common standards throughout. And as mentioned, government support is absolutely fundamental.
Andrea, as we are focusing on the post-COVID situation, so could you please also brief us about the new developments in the tourism sector due to this crisis, that is the COVID-19, which the world needs to focus on at the moment?
So basically, we really need some coordination with international and public-private sector to effectively re-establish operations, returning to the reopen borders and remove travel barriers, enhancing that seamless travel journey experience. We need to adopt a reinforcement of global health, hygiene, and safety protocols and standards. We require government support for the sector.
Gloria, the WTTC predicts return of over 100 million global tourism jobs in the year 2021. What are your thoughts?
I can give you the global numbers, which in 2019, we had 330 million people who were involved in jobs globally in travel and tourism. And that was 1 in 10 jobs globally were actually in our sector. And I can also confirm to you that up to 2019, in those last 4 years, 1 in 4 new jobs that was created was in travel and tourism.
Wonderful.
1 in 4 was of new jobs that was actually created. If we are looking beyond 2019, new research is really giving hope for the sector, which has been left struggling for survival really by COVID-19. And the best case scenario that we can see is 111 million jobs to be recovered. However, at least 84 million of those jobs are predicted to return this year. Last year, during the height of the pandemic, the WTTC, they did warn that 174 million global travel and tourism jobs were at risk. However, in the latest analysis that the WTTC has been able to produce, the most optimistic scenario is predicting that as many as the 111 million, as mentioned earlier, could be revived. However, that will still leave us 17% lower than the 2019 figures, accounting for about 54 million jobs less.
All right, Gloria. Lastly, I would just want to talk about if you could give us some of the finest examples from the global governments that have helped boost tourism in their countries.
The government support that we are seeking for our sector is really in terms of fiscal, first of all. We're looking for liquidity incentives. Also, we do need to be promoting our workers and protecting them. And we need investment in our sector itself. For example, the UK and Germany, along with Italy, where I'm actually speaking to you from today, have extended their furlough schemes for the sector into 2021. Other governments may be investing in the promotion of tourism. I think a lot of different governments are working on different ways of investing to get tourism back in their country again. However, it is the case of collecting that data and really sharing those experiences and see if we can also support governments around the world in having access to that information and being able to get our sector back on track as quickly as possible.
Thank you so much, Andrea Grisdale. That was our panelist, Andrea Grisdale, joining us from Italy. And it concludes this panel discussion. Thank you, Andrea, for taking the time to join us and for sharing all your insights with us.
Thank you.